Hi, my name is Dave Johnson. I'm the treasurer of our SafeBuild organization, and welcome you to our quarterly owners meeting relating to the role of safety culture. And really appreciate you joining us. Our organization has been developing over the last few years into organization of safety focused for contractors, owners, and the construction industry of the Seattle area. And we're excited today to invite a number of our local owners to talk about their role in safety culture. And so we really appreciate you joining us and being part of this organization. We're hopeful that we'll be able to meet in person soon and be able to get back to our normal connections once hopefully we get over the COVID hump. But for now, we're in this webinar format, and we appreciate you joining us for that. Also want to thank our sponsor today, AlertMedia. They have generously sponsored this meeting, and without the help of them and other sponsors for our organization, we wouldn't be able to put on some of this programming. So thank you very much for that sponsorship. Today, here's the agenda for our meeting, and I'm actually standing in for Mark Johnson, our president. So we'll go through some of the agenda today and get into the program. First off, what we have is our annual board member election vote. This is our annual meeting as well. And so as part of our process, we have a nominees for our 2022 board of directors, as you can see on the screen there. And our bylaws require us to get a vote for these board of directors during this membership meeting. So the list is up there. And since this is webinar format, if I could get from everyone, if you are part of the SafeBuild organization, if you could, in the chat box, vote yes to approve this slate of board of directors, or vote no to oppose. And I'll give you just a couple seconds to do that in the chat function. And I said, if you could please just put yes or no in that. That will get us approval of our board of directors to move on for our 2022 year. So give you just a couple seconds there. And just for information's sake, we're always looking for new people to be involved in the organization, and looking for volunteers to be part of the organization. So if you are interested and want to be part of our board or be part of the organization, please contact Jason Oliver, who's our executive director, or contact any one of our board members, and we'll be glad to hook you up and get you connected with our organization. It's really important for us to continue to grow our organization, and it comes from people like you that attend these meetings to be part of that growth. So with that, we are going to move into our program. And one of our goals of our organization is to ensure that we are trying to grow safety and safety culture around various parts of the construction industry in the Washington area. And as part of that, owners drive a big part of safety and their projects and how we are acting on their projects. So we've asked a number of owners, reps from the area, to provide some context and some content related to safety and the role that owners play in that safety culture. And we've got a great lineup of speakers here. We're going to have them each speak about 8 to 10 minutes about their organization. And one of the things I'd really like to encourage is, if you have questions come up during the presentation, please type them in the chat. Since this is a webinar format, it's hard to get a lot of interaction. But if you have something that comes up that you want to know, please type them in the chat box. And as we get through the presentations, we'll ask those questions for the various presenters. So with that, I really appreciate everyone's participation for the presenters today. And we're going to start with the University of Washington. Steve Tadgy, who's the executive director of the project delivery group, and Troy Stoliker, who's a director with the project delivery group as well, are going to talk about the role of the UW plays in a safety culture. So Steve, Troy.
Dave, thank you. Again, I'm Steve Tadji. I'm currently serving in an interim role as the Associate Vice President for Asset Management. Have been the Executive Director of the Project Delivery Group, and great to be with everyone today. So I want to make a few opening points, and then I'm going to turn to my partner Troy here to take us to the finish line. And Troy is really responsible for our safety effort as it exists today. And I think we'll get into more detail. I wanted to, at a high level, talk about the university and our approach to really how we deliver projects in general. And that's not only how we work with our partners, and we use that word intentionally, right? This is a partnership. This is not a command and control and monitoring for infractions and punishing mindset that we have. This is a partnership that we take seriously in all aspects of the projects. That's not to say we don't have contract requirements that we enforce, but we really do look for mutual success from all our partners. And we think when our partners are successful, we're successful and the projects are successful. And that also includes success in safety. So we've been on a journey and next slide, please, Jason. In fact, two more slides. There we go. So, we've been on a journey where I think we've evolved towards this more partnering approach that we find ourselves at today. Back, nearly 20 years ago, we kind of looked at ourselves in the mirror, and this preceded my time here, and realized we're not a very safe organization in terms of our capital project delivery. And I won't go into every one of these in detail, you can read them, but we've progressively made safety more of a, I'll just call what we're going to buy as much safety as the project needs, as opposed to making safety a competitive factor in how projects are priced and procured. So again, there may be practical limits on that, but our approach is we will work with our partners to pay for safety measures that we think are necessary and appropriate, again, depending on the contract model that we're using. We're a sizable consumer of construction. You can see some of the metrics here. We're certainly not the biggest consumer compared to, say, a Sound Transit, but we do consume a lot of construction. We have an ongoing and now longstanding goal of having a TRIR under 2. We're not quite there in a 20-year landscape, but we've got a number of years now, and I'll transition to Troy here in the next slide, where we have achieved that goal, and that we do take that very seriously. And Troy, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm Troy Stoliker, and I've been kind of assigned the safety program for about the last year, maybe a year and a half, probably about since the start of COVID. And so we have really kind of been challenged by that, but came out of there with some really kind of shining opportunities and improvements and enhancements to our program. And we'll talk about those as we go forward. But this graph that you're looking at right here shows like a historical trend with the state of Washington in green, the USA in red, and the University of Washington in purple. You'll see our little uptick going up towards 2020 and 2021. And one of the things that is a little bit new to us, even though our revenue and our workforce is roughly the same, the project size is changing drastically on us. We don't have the $200+ million projects in our portfolio anymore, but we still have the same total value of projects. So we have a lot more projects that we're working on right now, with kind of stretches our resources a little bit. So next slide. And so this year, when I said stretched our resource, that was a good segue to how we kind of think about safety, where we have spread safety across the organization and across all our stakeholders. So we embrace everyone that works on the project to be actively involved in safety. And we look at various analytics to kind of try to quantify how we're doing with our safety culture. And so one of the things that we're doing different this year is doing the near misses and doing root cause analysis on all of our recordable incidences and all of those that aren't recordable. And so that psychological safety is important so that we can get people talking about it regardless of the outcome, whether or not it was recordable or not. And then we're going to talk about this maybe in the question and answer process about our continuous improvement. And Steve had kind of mentioned that we took pricing out of the safety factor, and we're always trying to do continuous improvement. And when we select our partners for the project, we have now intentionally put a safety team together that evaluates the safety culture of those proposing. And what we found is sometimes that doesn't reflect very well with the rest of the stakeholders that vote for the project team that's being selected. And so we want to always be informing and trying to improve that. And we considered the pass-fail option. And again, with pass-fail, it could look like we don't care about safety as much because we're not assigning it 10 points. So we're going to talk about that maybe if we have a little feedback loop towards the end about what we might do better to help us, I guess, identify the culture of firms that are submitting and partnering with us on our projects. And then we also have for our major projects, our major procurement strategy is now design build. And so we're able to do a different kind of safety program within that wasn't available to us in the job order contracting and the design bid build. So we are, sorry, I don't have my timer up. I
think you're okay.
We're okay for time?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yep, couple more minutes.
So I don't know where we want to kind of go with that. We did want to kind of ask some questions back to this panel and kind of have a more interactive discussion rather than just us talk the whole time. So
perfect. Well, what we can do, let's go through each of the panelists, and then we can have a little bit of the discussion as we wrap through the rest of the panelists. So appreciate that, Steve and Troy. It's a good background, and UW's been at the lead of a lot of the safety in some of the culture that we've been trying to drive in the industry over the last few years, and that's helpful to get that perspective from you on your journey. Next, we're going to jump over to the Port of Seattle, and Bruce Gamble, who's the manager of construction safety, is going to talk a little bit about the port's safety program.
Thank you. So I want to start with a bit of a background on what the port is, because it has a lot of different tentacles. So the bottom line is that the port is special purpose government. The whole purpose, or the main focus or purpose of the port, is to provide an economic engine to the county, the region, and the state to create jobs and growth. And how that works out with all the properties that the port holds. SeaTac Airport, there's 30 commercial airlines, more than 30 commercial airlines operating currently at the airport, 51 million passengers in 51 million passengers and change in 2019. We have cruise ship terminals, the T91 and Pier 66 cruise ship terminals. We have marine cargo terminals. So that's in partnership with the Seaport Alliance, which is a partnership between the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Seattle. T5 Harbor Island facilities. We have recreation and commercial facilities, Shore Bay Marina, Bell Harbor Marina, Harbor Island Fisherman's Terminal, etc. Warehouses and other operating facilities, Pier 66. We've got conference centers at both Pier 66 and the airport office building at the airport. Pier 69 corporate offices, AOB corporate offices, Fisherman's Terminal, tenant spaces. And then we have our parks and wetlands and some other landside stuff. Think Jack Block Park, Centennial Park, Bridge Gear Park. So we're kind of all over the place as far as properties that we manage. And that's one of the reasons why at the port we have 3 different controlling entities. So I work in the construction safety department, which manages all contractors and construction projects. So we also manage tenant projects, the construction safety aspects of it. But there are 2 other organizations that we have: a Port of Seattle Health and Safety Department, which is part of HR that we work with, and we have Aviation Operations Safety, which is focused at the airport most entirely. So other entities. So what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of giving the big picture, and then towards the end here, I'll tie it all in together. So the basic is that our group, the construction safety group, and we're housed under engineering and capital project development. We're a service organization. We provide services to all of the construction projects, both tenant and capital projects at the airport. And we partner with the entities I've mentioned before. We partner with the Port Fire Department, Security, FAA. These are all entities that have control, most of them focused at the airport. So I'll kind of start at the beginning from how we foster the culture. So as Steve and Troy were mentioning, it really is a partnership with the port and the contractors. So we start off in the pre-construction process, obviously reviewing all of the prime contractor safety plans and COVID plans just to make sure that we're essentially on the same page as far as how we see the project, how we envision the hazards of the project, and how the contractor will mitigate the project hazards from a prime contractor standpoint. Prior to the start of any work on our capital projects, we always schedule a meeting, safety pre-NTP meeting. So we identify some of the challenges, and we're establishing our common goals as a team. So the port project team and the contractor moving forward to identify what are the hazards and risk on the project, and what the ultimate goals would be with that project. And we do have part of our establishment of standards, kind of a common language. We do put minimum credentials for site safety coverage. So that's like all owners, there's going to be specifications. And so we want the project to be successful. We want the contractor to be successful. And where we've seen challenges related to safety quite often is where sometimes the person or the team fulfilling the role doesn't have the knowledge, the know-how, the expertise to perform all the duties that they need to make sure the project is going to be safe. So we set forth minimum standards for folks performing safety roles on the project. Once we move into construction, we perform at least once a week on all of our capital and tenant projects, walks with the contractors. These are partnering walks. they're a snapshot, and they're designed to once again reinforce that common page. So we're seeing the exact same things the contractors are seeing. The safety walks are open to all on the project, and they're designed to make sure that everyone's working on the same page, and the mitigation is being taken care of. We often look at deficiencies regarding safety as a symptom, not as a symptom of one of the challenges on the project. It's not the ultimate fix. So if people aren't wearing just something simple like PPE, if there's vast PPE requirements or vast PPE deficiencies on the project, we would be able to try to understand with the contractor what's causing this. So everyone's kind of dealt with COVID and eyeglass use. And then working on solutions, partnering with the contractor to work on solutions. Pre-install meetings, when we have any significant activities related to an install, we have meetings that not only discuss how whatever will be installed or what activity will be performed, but with safety as one of the primary focuses of that pre-install to make sure it's going to be done safely and effectively. Anyone coming on a port construction project is required to attend a 1.5 hour. So that's project managers, that's designers, 1.5 hour Port of Seattle construction safety, where we once again communicate some of the port standards, minimum standards that are required on port sites, and some specifics, especially when it comes to airport. If folks are unfamiliar with working at airports, there are specific challenges that are working on that come along with working at airports. And so that's one of the things that our orientation achieves. We have incident reporting, once again, like Troy and Steve. We have a pretty robust incident reporting investigation process. And for serious incidents, we do have a component that is an incident review, which is basically a causal analysis of what caused the incident. Next slide, please. I've only got 50 seconds, so I will move on here. Other programs we have are aviation security access training. So anyone coming to work out, there's also security and safety training regarding that. We have our own regulated materials department at the port. And so we have additional training, lead, asbestos training tied to that. It's a different department, but once again, works partnering hand in hand with our department. The port is a signer of the AGC culture of care, which some people may not think it's a safety component. It definitely is. We have adopted our own port acceptable worksite practices that address essentially acceptable worksite harassment, discrimination that do tie into the safety components. And then another component that we have at the airport is we have what amounts to an 800 number. It's a 206 number, but it's 206-787 SAFE. That is a 24-hour staffed hotline that if anyone sees anything at the airport that poses a security or safety hazard, they can call that number, even if it's not associated with their construction project, because all these pieces are fitting together at the airport. There's very few projects that don't touch the outside of the project, or the outside touches their project. So we have an 800 number essentially for reporting hazards. That's proven very effective for addressing safety concerns on projects. And I've gone a little bit over, so I will stop now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
For your time.
Appreciate the input on this, on the port safety culture. Next, we've got we have to have equal time. Got to put some cougs on because it's the other side of the mountain. So we got Jason Harper, who's lead construction manager for Washington State University. Talk about some of Washington State's safety culture. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for having me talk for a little bit. I don't have a whole lot, but I did want to talk about a couple of things of how we actually get there and some of the things we did on like one of our last projects, the plant sciences building, how we actually get that collaboration and make it a safe culture for everyone. And I just wanted to say, the old adage of inside and outside the fence, inside the fence is the contractor's baby and outside is for us to take care of. I've been challenging that lately. Just to mirror the fact that I feel that safety is everyone's concern once you step on foot on our campus. And no matter how successful we are bringing in a project, at the end of the day, if somebody gets hurt, whether it's inside or outside the fence, that's unacceptable. And that just, to me, does not make it a successful project, kind of a black eye, if you will. And so I want to give a couple examples of what we did on our plant sciences building as how we kind of unified everybody and brought everyone together. And so the first thing we did was we created a project safety leadership team, because right off the gate, if your management team and your leadership team isn't committed to the safety, then it's hard to get the workers and everyone else to commit. And so with this project safety leadership team, we do a monthly meeting, and one thing we thought that was kind of innovative is we invited the safety director of the client, which would be our College of Agriculture and Human and Natural Resources. We invited them to step in and provide feedback and take part in our safety meetings. And then in turn, she did a presentation of the stuff that they do, whether that be out in the agricultural fields, harvesting potatoes. And it was kind of a unique experience that we got to see how they do things on their side, but then she gets to come in and see and maybe share with her folks how the contractors of the world do perform safety and what their culture is. Another thing that we did was, and I thought this was really kind of unique, was we invited our environmental health and safety and some of the lab users to just like an afternoon talking session with all of the contractors, not just the management team or anything. And what was really neat about that is they got to explain why we're building this particular project was a lab. We got to explain why we were building the building the way we did and why the safety features were in there. And the cool thing about that is I like to walk the jobs. And as I walk through, I know a lot of the contractors, I've been doing this my whole life. All the contractors would stop and say, "Hey, that's pretty cool. I had no idea this is why we did this." And I really didn't understand what exactly was going on in this facility that we're building. And for them to come out and explain that to them, they thought it was, they just thought it was a neat thing. And what I get from that is that they probably take that home with them, right? I mean, they probably talk amongst their friends and say, "Hey, we're building this building." And I think that's what kind of creates that culture that sets in, is when they're not just talking about safety on the job site, but maybe when they're at home or with their friends, talking about that stuff outside of the job, maybe just puts that in the back of their mind that, safety is something that we do all the time, not just part of the time when we walk through a fence. Another thing we've done would be to invite the fire department, our local fire department. We like to have them come through and do job site walks. And again, I think that puts it in the contractor's mind that, I don't have a metric that says that this does, but I certainly think that having these people walk through and saying, "Hey, they got our backs, they know we're here and how to react in case of an emergency." I think that, again, we're talking about culture, and I just want to drive that home. I guess I did want to mention that we do have, when we have a tower crane on site, we've even gone and invited the fire department to come and do high point rescue training, which is kind of neat to see. And again, it gets the community involved and whatnot. So anyways, I just want to close by saying, I think that, talking about safety rather than maybe all of the metrics is how it really sinks in. And at the end of the day, we want everyone to walk through the gate, and not just necessarily those folks, but the people outside the gate to go home and be safe. So thanks for letting me speak for a while. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate the perspective from your safety culture at Washington State. So just would encourage people to, if they have questions as we go through this, to ask them in the chat, and we will circle around and try and get back to those after we get through all the presentations. So with that, we're going to move on to our next speakers, which are Jeff Angeli and David Kirkpatrick from Seattle Children's Hospital. So Jeff, David, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Excited to be here. I'm Jeff Angeli. I'm a director over here in a group called Planning, Design, and Construction here at Seattle Children's, and my colleague here is David Kirkpatrick.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm David Kirkpatrick. I'm the construction oversight manager at Seattle Children's, and I've been here for about 4 years. I'd like to jump in and get going our presentation, start giving a little bit of background about who we are and what our safety culture is like at Children's. Starting right off with our mission, it's our mission is, or our mission statement is really, we provide hope, care, and cures so that every child can live the healthiest, most fulfilling life possible. Safety kind of radiates through our vision statement and who we are. And if you even go back to, like in the bottom of the slide, talking about what we will do, the first thing we talk about is practicing the safest, most ethical and effective medical care possible. And that extends, right beyond the front lines of the clinical providers. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background on who we are. A lot of us know us as the hospital in Laurelhurst. We were started in 1907 as a children's orthopedic hospital by Anna Kleiss. It was a little 12-bed hospital. And now we're close to 2 million, almost 2 million square feet on our main campus. We're the primary pediatric and referral center for the Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska region. And then we're strong partners with the UW School of Medicine, where we provide a lot of our providers, our professors there as well in the School of Medicine. And just if you look over on the right, we have several. We're not just our Laurelhurst campus, where we have specialty clinics and regional clinics, both around the Seattle metro regions, Olympia, Eastern Washington, and then as mentioned, out in places like Montana, Alaska, and some other out-of-state areas. So we have a pretty extensive footprint, and what this doesn't even include is our research side of our facility too, which has a pretty significant footprint downtown. Next slide, please. So looking at a lot of the safety, I think some of the core focus around safety within our construction practice really is, we have a huge focus around protection of our patients and staff, and really around clinical operations. How do we approach the work that we do, invasive work in an active children's hospital with some of the highest acuity patients in the country, in a way that's responsible and safe for the folks that we're protecting. Just a couple examples here where we really focus a ton of effort are around like our pre-construction risk assessment process, outlining what the risks are, all the logistics, how we go about prosecuting our work and setting up work hours so we can minimize potential impacts to patients as much as possible. We're almost fanatical about our infection control program and our partnership with infection prevention to protect the air quality around our critical areas, and huge focus on our alternative life safety measures program to make sure whenever we're impacting an egress path or a life safety system that we have accounted for that, have mitigations in place and train on it. Next slide, please. Culturally, I mentioned culturally, it's kind of in our DNA. We have we have a lot of tools in place that are really, that we utilize both in our project delivery side, but we utilize at the hospital as a whole, things we call our error prevention and safety tools. These came about several years ago, really from the clinical side, where there were some bad outcomes that happened we looked for opportunities to create kind of ingrained behaviors among our staff in terms of how we look at situations and how we embody safety. You know, some of our tools we have like QVV, STAR, Stop and Resolve, ARC, all ways that are kind of built into how we go about business right from the get-go when you get there, where it's understood that if a situation's foggy to you, you ask. If something still doesn't seem right, you escalate. If something is obviously not right, you stop and resolve. And this carries both on the clinical side, staff side, right into our project management side. Next slide, please. Then getting into kind of some of the details just around project side of it. One of the things we've adopted here and worked on developing in the last 2 or 3 years was a safety risk assessment under the DOH guys. This was something that came out from DOH a few years ago as an aspiration to how do we build safety into our actual project designs, looking at how do you, when you're designing and executing a project, how are you looking at best practices for infection control, patient handling, fall prevention, medication safety, behavioral health? How is that getting actually designed into your facility so that these things are thought about when we turn a space over and it's put into use? And then one other thing I wanted to mention before I pass it over to Jeff to talk about some of our aspirational things we're working on is we also have a hospital safety leadership committee where we look across all business lines that we're an input to. And so if we actually have an incident on site or something like that, we bring it back there to go over lessons learned. And if it's something that actually bleeds into excuse the bleed, but if it's something that actually affects the hospital in a way, we'll work a root cause through that so it gets system-wide visibility. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff.
Thanks, David. Next slide, please. And so going forward, we've got some other aspirational goals and some development plans that we're working on, primarily around 7 different elements, you know, all building up out of the safety focus from our operational business lines inside the hospital. But we're trying to enhance our contract document requirements and the owner's performance requirements for Seattle Children's to basically implement 7 other scopes of services around safety, you know, collaborating intensely with our partners and always, like what Steve was talking about earlier, trying to expand the psychological safety on our project teams. But really it's getting more information. What is the data that we need that's meaningful to not only tell us how we're doing and how we've done, sort of the lagging indicators as we talk about, but also what are the leading indicators? What's the data we need to get from our project teams that shows where we're going? You know, it's front facing, looking out the windshield, not in the rear view mirror. And things like, you know, maybe collecting data. You can see this form here that actually talks about, you know, things like first aid reports, near miss and property damage. You know, how many walk downs have we done? How many site observation reports have we made? How many kudos have we given or hazards have we found? Always trying to ask ourselves and then dashboard and display that data in readily accessible ways so we can make management decisions, see patterns alongside our partners and implement ideas that we think are responsive to trying to ensure an injury-free environment, as a project outcome. David spoke a little bit about the design hazard analysis. The other things that we're doing is, collaborating and reviewing site-specific safety plans, making sure that they're fit, and that all issues that can be recognized and mitigated, meeting the teams where they're at in the trenches and doing walkdowns and observations. And then importantly, when things do happen, serious potential incidents, we're taking them apart to understand what are the contributing factors, what's the root cause, and importantly, what have we learned and what are we going to implement for corrective measures to ensure that we can prevent a reoccurrence and promote understanding, across the industry. And that's one of the reasons that membership in the SafeBuild Alliance is important to us, so we can collaborate with other leaders that are trying to make a difference. And with that, I think I'll turn it back to Dave. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jeff and David. Appreciate your insight on how Seattle Children's approaches safety and the culture there. So with that, we've got about 10 or so minutes that we're going to have for question and answers. And we've got a few questions that have popped up in the chat, and would love if you have others, go ahead and type them in there. But I'll start looking through those and asking a few for our panelists. So the first one was actually one that Steve posed, and it was, I think it's a good one for the rest of the selection panels. It's, how is safety considered by other owners in the builder selection process? Anyone have that, want to respond to that question?
And Dave, I want to amend that a little bit too. We do a lot of work that is design, bid, build, right? So that, that is a different selection process than our sort of higher profile 10 or 12 projects where we kind of go at it on safety at a deeper level. And I'm interested in other owners' approaches to how or if safety can be brought to, what is inherently a price-based competition. We've thought about doing some sort of safety allowance, that is common to all bidders that we manage together as one mechanism. But I'll stop talking and folks can answer.
Any thoughts from the group? Jason, Jeff, Bruce?
I think that we have used, in my previous practice, 20 years or almost 20 years at the U, we've used, Steve, that infection control allowance, or we've used allowances when we do want to, take it out of the competition, so to speak, and level the playing field and have more control and influence over the performance. So I think that's a good thought in my experience.
I think we've used it situationally maybe, but not as a broad practice, and I'm just interested if that's out there.
How about the port in that idea? I wonder.
No, I'd actually talked to Steve about that before. We haven't used that a strict safety allowance to basically remove the safety from the table in the bidding process. It's an interesting concept. When COVID did come around, obviously, many of us were probably looking at, addressing some allowances with regard to COVID prevention, but for construction safety component, we haven't. I'd be interested to investigate that a little bit more with our construction management. So our groups, or our group, that the group I'm in, is mainly focused on safety, or that is our focus. So I'd be interested to talk to Steve and Troy a little bit more about that, maybe after this meeting with some of our construction management group to see what opportunities there are for removing that.
Hey, Jason, how do you evaluate that on your projects?
So I'm shaking my head here along with Bruce. We've never really entertained a safety allowance.
How about evaluation of safety in general on your selected projects versus your low bid?
So typically, especially on a design build, we've just been doing the pass fail. And I kind of have to agree with Steve that it doesn't really feel like, I guess the word I'm trying to, doesn't put a very big emphasis on safety when you just grade on a pass fail basis. So I am kind of interested in that, along with Bruce, on this safety allowance. It's like something certainly to discuss.
All right. Well, next question we had in the chat was how do we get leadership in organizations to make safety a priority? And I think we heard, Seattle Children's almost is inherent to a certain extent. You're a health-based organization where you almost are driving that from the purpose of your mission is to make people safe or healthy. Others, any thoughts about how you get leadership to drive safety as a priority? Each of your educational missions is a little bit different than maybe the health mission of Children's.
Hi, this is Bruce. I saw some similarities with Children's Hospital and some of the processes. Obviously, with the majority of our work taking place at a very large international airport, the safety component, both inside the fence and outside the fence, is critical. It's so I often look at safety as, it's one of the legs on the stool, and when we're talking about at the airport, it's not only the safety but the operational component of it. There's the security and life safety systems that all come into play. Any work that goes on at the airport. Some of our maritime projects are a little more isolated, but very, very small things. I mean, the analogy I've used before at the airport, a lot of our projects are like having oral surgery performed while eating a steak, literally. And so you've got all these different components that I didn't go into with regard to some of the processes that we have to have in place, construction area notifications and stuff like that, just so we don't impact or potentially affect the safety of not only the construction workers, but any of the traveling public or tenants.
Appreciate that, Bruce. Another question we had was, as owners, do you see any consistent underperformance from the industry related to safety? And I see Steve mentioned hand injuries and ladder safety are still very common. And I think those,
cuts.
Yeah, cuts and the like. Any other places where people would see either underperformance or things that they would like to contractors to focus on or get better at?
Well, for me, I think that, contractors and organizations that are good at safety are usually good at planning and execution of work in general, because that's what it takes. They also tend to be good at quality control. Safety doesn't just happen. It takes effort and talent. And so I seem to think, to me, it's a key indicator of high performance, or it can be. So don't know if that makes sense to others.
Absolutely.
Dave, I don't know if we have time for another question, but if we do, I have one that I'd throw out.
Absolutely. Go for it.
I'm interested in how our colleagues here scale safety across size of projects. You know, like Troy mentioned, our sort of very large projects are becoming fewer and far between, and we have many more now. We've always had smaller projects, but proportionally many more. And frankly, the large projects have resources that we can devote to safety and contracting terms that are amenable to investing in safety that the kind of your run-of-the-mill design bid build may not have, and you have a different level, perhaps, of sophistication of both general and perhaps trade partner on much smaller projects. And I'm just curious how the safety effort scales from large to small with our other owner colleagues here.
I'd like to know the answer to that myself, Steve.
Well, we have had the advantage to have a general contractor who might be on a large project where that scale is different and the margins are maybe easier to achieve. And they're also working on a small project. And so we have been able to kind of compare those two cultures, and they should be the same. And we can see stark differences. And when we point them out, it's pretty quick to get those adjustments to kind of level out. But those are one-offs, like those don't happen very often, but we can definitely see the disparity between the two.
And I'm not meaning to imply that smaller contractors are less safe or anything like that, but just the contractual terms, I think, are more difficult for us to manage. Like, we don't have an incentive program where you can incentivize safety monitoring and safety observations that are tracked through software and all that, right? That's a thing that's specific to our large projects, or at least some of them. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is the resources difference.
I would say it's fertile ground for experimentation, with some of those incentives at a smaller scale. It's about risk management, and, taking it out of the competition, like you said, is a good idea, and trying that and seeing what the difference looks like, on a few projects. You can always go back to the way it is.
It seems like the planning and the resources to be able to look ahead sometimes, or manage different disparate parts of a project, are part of the challenge when you have a smaller project. Just don't have that the people at the time. Well, I really appreciate the input from all of the speakers and presenters today. We've really appreciate the thoughts and answers you put into this, and we're going to now transition to our sponsor, AlertMedia, today, and they're going to give a little bit of a presentation on their product, but also just appreciate their support and being able to bring us forward on as we are a nonprofit organization. Our programming is dependent on sponsors, and we appreciate AlertMedia stepping up for that. So with that, we will transition to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dave.
Go right ahead.
Right. Okay, great. I think you're in presentation mode. You want to go to the full screen? Let me know when you get that going. So my name is Peter Steinfeld. I'm the SVP of Safety Solutions here at AlertMedia, and I won't keep you long. I know people got to get home, so we'll spend about maybe 6-7 minutes, if that's okay. Did you want me to share my screen, or are you going to share that out?
Jason is pushing it on.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, Peter, I'm having a little technical difficulty on my end. So if you would like to share yours, you should be able to do that right now.
Sure, absolutely. Let me do that. Okay. All right. Share. Okay, can you guys see that all right?
Yes, we got it.
Okay, wonderful. If that changes, let me know. Again, Peter Steinfeld, VP of Safety Solutions here at AlertMedia. And I'm just going to take you through a few slides here. See if it will, there we go. All right. Fantastic. So a lot of you probably aren't familiar with AlertMedia. We work with thousands of organizations, including those in the construction industry, to help keep their employees safe, informed, and connected during emergencies and critical incidents. And you can see just a few of the logos of some of our clients. We've got a little over 3,500, again, many in the construction industry. And frankly, a lot of them used other mass communication and threat intel platforms before moving to us. But they did make a decision to switch to AlertMedia. And the reasons are what you see in the 3 columns here. Number one is our laser focus on ease of use, because in an emergency, when you've got to get messages out to people and communicate, if a product's not easy to use, then people either won't use it out of fear or they'll use it incorrectly. And either way, it's not a good outcome. So if you're interested in seeing the product, I think you'll very quickly see in a demo just how simple we make it to communicate. Second is we're just laser focused on innovation organically at our company. Instead of just stagnating or trying to buy other solutions and jam them together, we really listen to our clients, take feedback about what can we do to make our product better to help you in your job. And then we integrate those things into new features and functions. And then lastly is service. If any of you guys have bought software as a service before, it seems like they oftentimes leave out the service part. Not at AlertMedia. So we'll assign you a dedicated customer success manager who's highly technical. So you don't have to become an expert in the product. They'll help you do everything. So what do we do specifically? Well, let me go to the next slide here. And we'll talk about that. So our mission really has been the same since day one when we were founded. And that's to help our customers save lives and really minimize loss in the face of critical events. And to do this, we've developed what I would call a complete modern solution that supports organizations with a variety of initiatives. It's everything from employee safety and emergency preparedness to business continuity planning, disaster recovery, and a whole lot more. And you can see the 3 core parts of our solution here. So our global threat intelligence helps you identify threats that are near your people and locations a whole lot faster than trying to do it on your own. And that with automated impact assessment. So you can tell very quickly which of my facilities, which of my people is this nearby, and then give you real-time warnings. So you don't have to be staring at a map all day. We'll send you emails, texts, mobile app pushes about these things, everything from weather incidents to active shooter situations and everything in between. In the middle is our emergency communication software. It helps you communicate very quickly and effectively during any kind of an emergency event with multi-channel notifications. So being able to send messages over email, text, phone call, mobile app push, and 2-way features that allow you to interact with your people. So send them a message and get responses back so you can really understand what's going on in the field. Confirm safety, things like that. And then lastly, on the right, you'll see here is our employee safety monitoring solution. So essentially, we give your people that are lone workers the ability to raise their hand and say, I need someone to watch me while I'm doing this job. And if something goes wrong, I need to hit the panic button. Or if my timer expires, I need you to send law enforcement over to get me the assistance I need right away. So that's the kind of the third leg in the stool. All right. So as I mentioned before, we talk to our customers all the time, and what we hear from them is that some of the key pain points that they have and what they find most helpful in emergency communication solutions is that they're faced with threats of all kinds every single day that could really potentially impact their people and their ability to conduct business. Because of that, they need a very fast and easy way to communicate time-sensitive information, because anytime things are confusing or different, productivity just drops. Nobody does anything until they figure out what's going on. Communication solves for that. Another big part of it is just confirming employee safety. They want to make sure that when something goes wrong, they can quickly reach out to the audience and get responses back, knowing who's okay, who can I ignore right now, and where do I need to direct my attention. And then lastly, I mentioned this before, is just multi-channel communication is key. In this day and age, there are so many channels that you can communicate over. You have no idea which is the channel that Fred or Susan want to get a message on. So you got to hit them on every device to make sure that they see it as quickly as possible. So that being said, I'll show you some of the ways that AlertMedia supports organizations that are similar to yours. So you can see here, number of customers in the construction and building industry, and they utilize our solutions to communicate with their workers and confirms safety basically wherever they are, on the job, in an office. And you can see here some of the ways they use our solutions. So they take advantage of our lone worker employee safety monitoring tool to give those lone workers that are in isolated or high risk scenarios a fast and reliable way to report incidents, or just signal for help from law enforcement or an ambulance or something like that. Our emergency communication software helps them keep their workers informed of changes in their shift time or location. That's a big one. Or even fill shifts if an employee can't report to the site. Sometimes you have a pool of people you can send a message to. You only need one of them, but you don't want to sit there and call them one at a time. So you can blast a message to everyone and see, who can come on site right away. It can also be used to send site-wide safety notices in the event of some kind of injury or incident, to update workers on any site closures due to weather, power outages, or just about any threat you can think of that could be impacting the location. And then we also see just generic use, general corporate communications from leadership or reminders about important meetings and events. And lastly, it's not really called out here, but our global threat intel tool really helps them identify threats that are near their people and locations a whole lot faster, so they can notify them immediately. Big in the weather side of things. Next slide here. You'll see, oops, sorry, I went too far. Just an example of one of our clients, Moss Construction. Some of you guys may be familiar with them. But a few months ago, I had the opportunity to interview Scott Gerard, who's the VP of Employee Health and Safety at Moss Construction, for the podcast that I run called the Employee Safety Podcast. If you have a moment, I'd recommend you listen to that episode. It goes right back to, I think, the second question that was asked earlier, which is how do you create a culture of safety and get the executives to buy into it? Scott talks all about it. So I think it's like 20, 25 minutes, but well worth listening to. If you're not familiar with Moss, they're a national multi-billion-dollar construction firm headquartered in Fort Lauderdale, but they do have offices and construction sites across Hawaii, California, and Texas. So as you all know, those are areas that experience a wide range of potential threats all around the year, a lot of them weather related. Now, one of them was Hurricane Lane that happened a few years ago. It's a Category 4 hurricane. And of all places, it threatened Hawaii. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That was back in 2018. So Moss had several active construction job sites and solar projects across Hawaii at that time. They had hundreds of workers spread across the islands. And it was really fascinating when I spoke to Scott. He talked about how the company relied on the threat intel they were getting through our solution, and then the emergency communication portion to essentially track the storm and then keep employees informed in real time on the latest updates. And then they also, in our product, had an event page that they set up where people could then, at their own pace, visit it and see what was going on. So all that can be done within our solution. And then they use two-way survey notifications to basically rapidly identify 4 employees that felt that they were ill prepared to weather the storm at home, because the building codes in Hawaii are not like they are in Florida. And there are a lot of people that live in places that can't sustain hurricane, strength winds. So they basically sent a message to everyone, said, do you feel like you and your families are safe? If not, we'll get you somewhere. So then they got 4 replies saying, yeah, I don't feel safe. Can you put me and my family up in a hotel or something? And immediately they did that. So that created tremendous gratitude and a lot of positive feedback from the employees, which was huge. Last thing I'll mention here, because I'll get you guys on your way, is we do have a wide variety of resources to help you prepare for and really just keep your people safe. So I invite you to go to the resources page at alertmedia.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there. There's the podcast episode I mentioned and a whole lot more, blog posts, product and feature guides, and lots of other useful tools. If you would, while you're there, definitely subscribe to the Employee Safety Podcast. So at minimum, you can listen to that interview with Scott. I thought it was great. But there are, every week we release one where we're interviewing different safety leaders on topics like workplace safety policies, business continuity, emergency preparedness, and crisis management. A lot of great stuff. Not me just talking, I'm just asking the questions. I have a lot of experts sharing good stuff. And if one of you is interested in being on the podcast, let me know if there's something that you want to share. Absolutely would love to have you. Now, SafeBuild Alliance is going to make these resources available to everyone after this event today. But that's all I had. Just don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at all, or if you'd like to schedule a demo to see what AlertMedia can offer you. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Well, appreciate that, Peter, and appreciate your sponsorship for this meeting. We're happy to have you. And again, we're, as nonprofit organization. We rely on our members and our sponsors to help us deliver programming throughout the year. I do want to have also a reminder that we do have on our website, we have banner ads for the 2022 year available. So if you're interested, contact Jason and he can get you hooked up with that. Also have membership renewals coming up this week or this month. So for the 2022 year. So be on the lookout for that. And if you're not a member yet and would like to be so, we would encourage you to join us. We're continuing to ever evolve and grow as an organization. It's been a little bit tough during the COVID year to connect and get together. And, we're excited to try and get together next year in person. And we're going to make ways to do that so that we can create these genuine connections and continue to develop our safety culture as a group, a collective, and share best practices and figure out how we can all get better with safety. So with that, I really appreciate everyone that showed up today for the meeting and your participation. We're very thankful for the presenters and for sharing their time and their resources about how safety affects the culture of owners. And we really look forward to being able to provide some additional new programming in the upcoming year so that we can all get better at safety and keep everyone pushing forward and getting better at this. So thank you so much. And with that, I believe we are done for the day. So thank you very much.